In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto the ages of all ages, amen. I'd like to start with a story. Some of you know that in my past life I was a surgeon. I was a children's surgeon, which is a subspecialty of general surgery. General surgery is a misnomer because it's not general, it's a specialty. But that's what it's called. It's called general surgery. I tell you the truth, not many people know this, and it's not something I talk about much. But I figured if we want to be real, let me be the first to get real. I actually didn't want to do general surgery. I started off wanting to do pediatrics, and then I fell in love with surgery, but I still love children, so I thought I would do pediatric surgery, which was great. Then, and that's what I prepared my whole application out of medical school to go into specialty for. And all my ducks were in a row, and everything was set up perfectly. And then I discovered plastic surgery. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? Plastic surgery is not all, cosmetic surgery. It's not all aesthetic surgery. It's not all money, right? Plastic surgery is about restoring function. Plastic surgeons are often, most hand surgeons are plastic surgeons. Some of them are orthopedic surgeons. Plastic surgery is all about restoring function. They do a lot of bone surgery. They do a lot of nerve surgery. They do tons of reconstructive surgery. I'm a very creative person, and I love reconstructive surgery. And there's hardly any reconstructive surgery in general surgery. And I tell you the truth, as I fell in love with this specialty, as I found myself, I had a dilemma. I didn't know what to do. Now I have a CV which basically says general surgery all over it, but my heart is somewhere else. I looked at the other people who are applying to plastic surgery in the city because I knew the people in the two big med schools in the city. I was in one, and my sister and friends were in the other. So I kind of asked around who's applying to plastic surgery, and they all had PhDs, master's degrees, CVs that were like multiple of the pages of mine, right? So I said, you know what? Better to get something than to get nothing. And I lost sleep over this. I lost sleep because I knew that my heart was somewhere, and I knew that I wasn't being true to myself. And I never did plastic surgery. I went into general surgery. I was a rising star. I did fantastic. And at one point, very early in my training, the surgeon who was supervising me left me to do this case with this plastic surgeon who happened to be the head of the department in my training center in plastic surgery. And I told him, I have a deep respect for plastic surgery as we were working together. And he says, really? I've never heard a general surgeon say that to a plastic surgeon before. What's wrong with you? I told him, just between me and you, I actually wanted to be a plastic surgeon. But I just didn't think that I would get accepted. I didn't think that I would get in. And he literally stopped operating and looked at me and he said, really? Like, just say the word and we'll take you. Like, right now. Like, tomorrow morning you'll be in plastic surgery if that's what you want. I was like, oh gee, I don't know, I need to think about this and whatever. And I avoided him like the plague in the hospital for the next 2 months, Right? And I still didn't have the courage to make that leap. Like, I was offered the position, like right there on a silver platter, right over somebody's open abdomen, right? I was being offered a position in what should be my dream job. This is the career for the rest of my life. And I was so shell-shocked, feeling that I wasn't as adequate, feeling I wasn't good enough, feeling that I wasn't fit, that I couldn't make that step. And I never did go into plastic surgery. I fell in love with general surgery. I did very well. I came here to Sick Kids, one of the best top 5 training programs in the world, to do pediatric surgery. They offered me a position later. The story ends happily, but it doesn't end the way that I thought it should have ended at that time. And the reason was I didn't have the guts. I just didn't have the guts to do it. And what makes us step on the threshold of opportunity and then step back? What makes us right at that moment of decision and not bite? Why? What makes us do that? When we're guaranteed success, when we're guaranteed opportunity, when we're guaranteed goodness, what makes us do that? I guess the end of the story is it didn't matter whether I had plastic surgery, general surgery, whatever. I just need to end up in Toronto somehow so I could meet God in this place and come and love you all and serve you all. But, you know, that's not how the story was supposed to go. That's not how the story was supposed to go. Anxiety is really prevalent. The reason I chose this is because, not to single anybody out, so none of you feel like I'm talking about you. All of you almost have come and talked to me about things that give you anxiety. And what I realized is when one person comes and talks to me about anxiety, they're talking oftentimes about something completely different than what the person before them came and they called anxiety. So everybody has something that's bothering them and they call it anxiety. So we're going to look at a few definitions, but before we do that, the 1 year prevalence of the 1 year likelihood of somebody developing an anxiety disorder in Canada is 12%. That's enormous. That means 1 in 10. That means if you count 5 people to your left hand and 4 people to your right, one of you is going to develop an anxiety disorder, God forbid for you, but the rest of Canada, right, is going to develop an anxiety disorder this year. That's big. That's a really big deal. 1 in 4 Canadians will have at least one anxiety disorder in their lifetime. That's enormous. Do you know 4 people? Three people other than yourself? Right? That's enormous. Right? And the worst thing about anxiety disorders, maybe the best thing about anxiety disorders, is they are so treatable, for the most part. I'm talking from a medical perspective. There's people here who are more knowledgeable than me, so I'm not going to overstep my boundaries. But, everything I've read around this, reminding myself of my good old psychiatry days, anxiety disorders are amongst the most treatable mental health conditions. We're not talking necessarily about, like a disorder, an illness, but we're talking about what stopped me from making that decision, right? We're talking about the little voice in my head that's always telling me, you're not good enough, you're not fast enough, you're not slim enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, you're not that, right? We're talking about the little voice in your head that's telling you, oh, don't forget, you got to do this later, and you got to do this after that, and you got to do this after that. And before you even had your morning coffee, you're already like being steamrolled by your schedule, right? And you've already gone through all the horrible conversations, the difficult conversations you're going to have with people. You've gone through them all before you've even had your morning coffee. Like, let me be honest with you, okay? If you come between me and my morning coffee, not good things are going to happen to you, right? And I told you now, and I warned you, and it is out of my control, okay? I take no responsibility for what will happen to you for getting between me and my morning coffee. The only thing that gets between me and my morning coffee is my quiet time, and if I'm awake enough, I pray. If I'm not awake enough, I have my coffee, and then I pray. Because otherwise, not good stuff is going to happen to you, right? But I have this companion, right? I have this little guy who lives with me. Like, he's kind of like a bad house guest. Those people, somebody tells you, look, I'm just going to come, I just need a place to stay for 2 weeks, right? 2 months later, they're still sitting on your couch, right? I've got this little John Prime, John B, right? Like John number 2, right? I guess I'm John B, but anyways, there's another one of me, right? And he's always talking to me. And I wake up in the morning, the first thing I hear is, don't forget, you got to deal with this today. Don't forget, you got to do that today. Don't forget this, don't forget that. And you're like, leave me alone, right? Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. A little secret for you, I'm going to talk about it through the series today. He's not going anywhere. He's here, and he's here to stay. So I might as well figure out how to become friends with him. The dictionary, just so we're all talking about the same thing, defines anxiety as a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So some degree of uncertainty, usually it's relatively soon, but it can be far away, right? And it gives us unease, nervousness, worry. Let's see what the ancient wisdom tells us. It tells us fear is classified amongst the passions and is provoked by the risk of loss or suffering or the idea or feeling that one is going to lose or could lose what is desired for or what one is attached to. Basically it's saying, I really want this thing, and I'm worried I could lose it. I could lose it. So that makes me worried. That makes me anxious. That makes me fearful. That makes me not right. Right? This is St. Athanasius and St. John Damascene. We, as human beings, the church teaches us, are made up of soul, spirit, and body. All three. The soul is the seat of the mind, is the seat of the emotions, is the seat of the will. The spirit is where we actually really connect with God. So we think we connect with God when we get the tingly feeling down our neck and so on. That's our soul getting goosebumps, right? But we actually really connect with God when our spirit connects with Him. So, which is a whole different ball of wax. But we have bodies as well. The funny thing about these things is they're not different from each other, so different from each other that they have nothing to do with each other, right? So when my public speaking teacher used to train us and tell us that the symptoms of anxiety are the same physical symptoms of excitement. So instead of saying, man, I'm so freaked out about the speech I have to give, why not say, I'm so excited about the speech I have to give. I've got so many useful things to tell people. This is going to really rock my world and theirs. This is going to be the best day of my life, and so on, and kind of psych myself up. Because the symptoms are exactly the same. If I go down the I'm worried route, I'm just going to become more worried, right? Your knees shake, and you get butterflies in your stomach, your palms get sweaty, and you start to stutter, right? That's what we do when we're anxious. So just because it's something that really affects our soul doesn't mean that our body and our spirit are unrelated. That said, as I announced upstairs, I'm going to limit my conversation about spiritual life and about the spiritual therapies of fear, just because the lion's share of it is going on in the soul. The lion's share of it is going on in the mind and in the emotions. And to do this as kind of an introductory series over just 4 weeks, it would really exceed the scope. But we are going to talk very much about practical things that we can do to help us overcome this on the level of the soul and a little bit on the level of the spirit and of the body as well. The answer is so simple. It's so simple, it's staring at us right in the face, and it's actually the thing that's terrifying us, right? The answer is just to go through it. Like you're only afraid of something that's in the future. Once you've gone through it, once I put in my application for plastic surgery and I get blown out of the water by all the other people who are so much more qualified than me, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore, right? I mean, it may not be the outcome I wanted, but there's nothing to be afraid of anymore, right? So the fear is gone. Or I end up getting it, and, I live happily ever after, whatever, right? But either way, once I go through it, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. So the solution is so simple, it's actually staring at us right in the face. And the reality is, if I ended the talk right now, none of us would do it, because you knew that. I didn't tell you anything you didn't know, right? But we're still not doing the things we're afraid of. We're still not confronting the things we're afraid of. There's things that we're so afraid of, we're even afraid to mention them in prayer. We're even afraid to say, Lord, please take care of, and actually say the thing. So we just say, Lord, take care of the thing that's bothering me, right? No, really, right? We all do that, right? We don't want to name the demon lest we agitate him, poke the bear, and all the symptoms of anxiety come pouring down upon us. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to just do it? How are we going to just pull up our bootstraps and just run through the fire? How are we going to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the friends of Daniel, get thrown in the fiery furnace? I mean, it's highly unlikely that they didn't have an ounce of fear or anxiety at this fiery furnace that was burning so hot it was burning the people throwing the logs in, right? It's highly unlikely that they're like, oh, fiery furnace, I don't worry about that, right? I'm sure they were scared. I'm sure they were. But they went through it, right? They had a happy ending, right? So fear, like all other things, has levels, right? There's like superficial levels on the outside that are easily visible, and ones that are much more deeper inside. So we're just going to kind of take it apart for a couple of minutes before we get really into the practical nitty-gritty stuff, right? Level 1 fears are fears of things that happen or fears of things that I have to do, right? So they're fears of aging, of becoming disabled, of retiring, of applying for a job, not getting it, of public speaking, giving a talk and it not going well or something like that. Things that are going to happen, they're going to happen anyways. I'm aging, it's not going anywhere. The white hairs are getting more, they're not getting less, right? Or a fear of something I have to do. So it's on that level, right? It's things that are visible. Level 2 fears are fears that they're more a state of mind, right? And every level 1 fear has a level 2 buddy, Fear of rejection, fear of being conned, being tricked, fear of success, fear of, doing, those of you who have been very successful in life, God bless you, you realize when you're successful, other people get jealous and make your life miserable, right? So it's like you need to kind of have tamed success, you know what I mean? Fear of being helpless, and so on. Fears that are one level deeper. But there's a level even deeper than that. And, the level that's deeper than that isn't a fear of giving a talk, it goes bad, and that's based on a fear of rejection. Because, hey, if I give a talk, it doesn't go so well, people get insulted, bad things happen, I get hit with tomatoes or whatever, right? And then that's based on a fear of rejection. If I walk out of here with a smile on my face, say, hey, well, I did what I was supposed to do, I was faithful to God, too bad, so sad it didn't go well, God's going to take care of me, and so on, it wouldn't be so bad. The level 3 fear is the biggest fear of all. The level 3 fear is that I just can't handle it. Is that when bad stuff goes down, I'm gonna self-combust, right? I'm gonna crash. I'm gonna explode. I don't know what's gonna happen to me. Bad stuff is gonna happen to me. I'm not gonna be able to handle it. So if we can work at our fears backwards from I can handle it, then the level 2 fears don't have much to stand on, then the level 1 fears don't make as much sense anymore. Again, this is all nice in theory up here, but how are we going to do this in real life, right? So it's very simple. If we can just trust that we'll be able to handle whatever comes our way, good or bad, for better or for worse, I'm going to get through it, right? I'm going to come out at the end of the other side, I'll do much better. Going back to my career again, sometimes we do these operations on patients that have had enormous abdominal catastrophes, like they've had like a World War III happen in their abdomen, right? And everything is just falling apart. And we'd be in there once 18 hours, 22 hours, right? And you know you're going at the pace of a turtle. This is not going to happen quickly. After a while, you start to kind of you start to just think to yourself, this is never going to end. My grandkids are going to be going to university. Somehow I'm going to conceive children standing at this operating room table. This is just never going to end. When is this going to end? And then, I would start pacing myself. I'd look at the clock and 3 minutes have passed. Time is still ticking. Time has not, it may seem like time has stopped, but time has not stopped. And I would just imagine myself, I had this little rocking chair in my apartment overlooking the mountains, and I would just imagine myself sitting in my rocking chair with the lights off in my living room because it's 2 in the morning, sipping a cup of tea and putting my feet up and saying, finally, patient's okay, I'm okay, I'm going to get through it. I know I'm going to get through it. I can picture it, I know I'm going to get through it. It may be next week, but I'm going to get through it, right? So if we can just believe that we can get through this, that in and of itself rips the rug out from under our anxieties, right? And then our level 2 anxieties don't make so much sense anymore, and they've lost their power. And then our level 1 anxieties have also start to lose their power. Just a little bit of scripture. The Psalms tell us, even the strong lions sometimes go hungry, but those who trust in the Lord will lack no good thing. Indeed, 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 the story isn't over yet. Whatever you are anxious about, whatever you are worried about, you haven't seen the last slide. You haven't seen the last scene. You haven't read the last page of the book. It's not over yet. The fat lady hasn't sung yet. It's not over. It's not over yet. There is another page. That's the story of the resurrection, right? Like, the whole world says everything ends at death, you know? He lived, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, he had all these accomplishments, blah, 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 and then he died. The end, right? No. Jesus came so he could slip up one more page after that last page that says he died, and then you flip the page and it says, oh look, he rose again, right? And he took the whole world with him and ascended to heaven. Look at that, right? Look at that. So, what's supposed to be failure, what's supposed to be death, what's supposed to be the end, isn't the end. That's what this verse is saying. St. Paul tells us, look, if he didn't spare his only begotten son, he didn't think that you were too cheap, that you weren't worth giving up. Everybody makes a trade for things that are fair. Like that's how like the price of stocks are set, right? Like if the price of a stock is $200 and then I in a moment of madness decide to buy 1,000 of them at $400, all of a sudden that stock is valued at $400 because there's somebody out there willing to pay that price because that person judged it to be a fair price. God judged it fair to exchange his son for you. His only son. He doesn't have like a photocopier to make more of them. Just one. And he says, St. Paul's saying, how much more will he give us all things? If God is for us, who can be against us? But I promised you that we'd keep it real, and I promised you we'd keep it in the soul world and not get too ahead of ourselves in the spiritual world. If we can just say, so whatever happens to me, given any situation, we can handle it. The royal we can handle it. We can handle it. We'll be good. Let's look at a few truths about fear, okay? I offer you the opportunity to put up your hand and contest any of these truths, okay? Mina, do we have those cards? We can hand them out. Yeah. So I found these to be so powerful. I had folks here at the church print them for you in pocket cards so that you can carry these around and you can look at them and you can see to yourself. You can see for yourself. You can remind yourself of these truths. The first truth is that the fear will never go away until I go through it. Because the fear lives in an area that's called, a neighborhood of town called the unknown or the uncertain, right? That's where fear lives. I live in my neighborhood, the neighborhood of comfort zone, right? And here in my 4-block radius of comfort zone, we're happy, the weather is nice, everything is good, right? But it's inevitable that I'm going to have to venture out of my little neighborhood. It's just for sure. There's always going to be a limit to my comfort zone, and outside that comfort zone is going to be uncertainty, for sure. There's things I know really well. There's stuff I know inside and out. There's stuff I know like the back of my hand, blindfold me, and I can still do them, I can still find them, I can still juggle them, I can still, right? But those are the minority of things. There's a lot of things that I can't do, that I don't know how to do, that I have to learn how to do, that I have to figure out how to do, right? Fear is never going to go away. It's always going to be there, right? As long as I continue to grow. The only way for there to be no fear is for there to be no uncertainty, which means for me to sit in my little circle and never move out of it. The only creature that does that is one that is dead. So, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to be facing uncertainty. So I need to figure it out. I need to figure this out. Truth number 2. The only way to get rid of fear is doing something, and the fear of doing something is to go out and to do it. The only way is to get fear behind us. As long as it's in front of me, it's going to freak me out, right? The moment it's behind me, either I'm going to say, gee, that wasn't so bad, or I'm going to say, oh my God, that was horrible, never do that again, right? But regardless, I'm not afraid of it anymore, because it's behind me. We talked about that already. The only way to feel better about this fear that's just never going to go away is to go out and do it. So not only is it not going to go away, it can stay there and I can stay over here. And a lot of us feel like, hey, you know what, I get pretty comfortable. You just stay in your little box over there. I'm going to stay in my little box over here. I'm a pretty patient person. You just do your thing. Do your thing. Right? I'll just wait you out. Right? I realized a lot of difficult people in life, I can just be patient and I can just wait them out. Right? But while I'm waiting, I'm still freaked out about it. I'm not going to feel any better. You're not going to feel any better until it's behind you. Not only is it not going to go away, the bad feeling that comes with it isn't going to go away either. Not only am I going to experience fear whenever I'm in unfamiliar territory, this is a good one. So is everybody else. Right? So this isn't just you, it's not just me, it's everybody. Everybody, when they are doing something they have never done before, when they have to talk to somebody and they have to have a conversation that's difficult, their heart races a little bit. They get a little anxious, they get a little worried, they get a little excited, they get a little whatever you want to call it. Everybody. So whenever you feel isolated, whenever you feel alone in the darkness of your anxieties, I feel alone in the darkness of my worries and my anxieties. Oftentimes something that helps me so much is to think of somebody else who's going through something new. Someone who just moved to town new. Someone who just started coming to this church new. Somebody who's in a new relationship, they really want it to work out, but they don't know how it's going to go. They just started a new job. They this, they that, they have an exam, I don't know, whatever. Somebody who's at that frontier line of their comfort zone and they're about to step into the darkness of the unknown. And it makes it real easy for me to pray. Sometimes I find it hard to pray for myself. It makes it really easy for me to pray. I just pray for the other person. Praying for the other person somehow makes me feel better too. Truth number 5, pushing through fear is less frightening than living with the underlying fear. It's actually less scary to go through the fear than to just stand there and stare at it. So all of this is saying, dude, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Bite the bullet. If it's within your capacity, right? You know, sometimes there's things you just have to wait for. But if it's within your capacity, get away from the only way we can flee the helplessness of fear is to go through it. So fear becomes our companion. He's here for life. He's not going anywhere. She's here for life. She's not going anywhere, right? And now that I know that, right? Now that I know that, maybe what I can do is instead of trying to make the fear go away, to make the anxiety go away, maybe I can change how I interact with it. Maybe if I stop trying to throw this house guest out the door that's overstayed their welcome, maybe if I start being nice to them somehow, maybe they'll be nice back. Maybe they'll add some adventure, some excitement to my life. Maybe they'll add some pizzazz, some spice to my life. So the problem isn't so much the fear, because everybody has to deal with it. The problem isn't so much the worry, everybody has to deal with it. The problem is how I'm dealing with it, right? And we can, semantics, we can use different words and stuff like that, and there's lots of you here who are more educated than me in this department, right? But really what it comes down to is that feeling, that my heart is going to race and my butterflies in my stomach and my knees shake and I start to stutter and I lose my words. And that I'm going to get that for the rest of my life. And I do tons of public speaking all over the world, thank God, and I love it. I really enjoy it. And every single time I stand there, I'm like, what am I going to say, right? Like, what about all this preparation, all the slides, all this research, all this, right? What am I thinking? What am I going to say? Every single time I think the same thing, right? And every single talk, I'm gonna think the same thing. So I remember my public speaking teacher in college. He'd say, plant your feet, put your hands on the two sides of the podium. You are in command. These people are all listening to you because you have something life-changing to share with them. So enjoy it. Enjoy the attention. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the influence. Enjoy it. That was, I never thought I'd be standing here giving this talk, and I thank that man for his teaching at that time. There's one sentence that I say that I've learned from others that really makes a big difference. I remind myself that I am powerful. In Jesus, I'm powerful and I'm loved. In Jesus, I am powerful and I'm loved. Anyone can say this phrase at any time, and it may be true to them, it may be not. They may be able to rationalize it, they may not. But for me, I can clearly rationalize it, because the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords is the one who is upholding me. Job 34, it says, by his Spirit he gives breath to man, and all of creation is upheld by him. Like Elihu, Job's friend, is saying, like if God were to remove his Spirit, if God's Spirit were to blink for a second, the world would implode. Like God's Spirit is the one holding everything together. He who holds the world together is holding me. I am powerful and I am loved. The whole world turns against me. The universe turns against me. All my friends turn against me. My family, the closest people in the universe turn against me. My God will never leave me. My God will never leave me. So I'm going to hand out another thing for you. If you feel comfortable, we printed a poster for you. The suggestion, this whole series is based on this book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. It's available as a PDF online, or you can order it off Amazon. It's highly available. The author has gone on to better places. It's been in print for a long time, and really the truths in it are just so real and so earth-shattering. So, in this book, Susan Jeffer suggests that you make a poster for yourself. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to make a poster for myself. I'm just not a poster kind of guy, right? I'm just not like my daughter is the coloring pens kind of person, but she's not at that level where she's going to make the poster for me yet. So I figured, you know what, if there's some of you out there that aren't going to make your own poster, let's just make it for you, right? And I challenge you to grab one from our volunteers and to hang it in your room for the duration of this series, just for a month. I'm asking for like sort of 18 by 36 inches real estate on your wall, right? And for you to use this poster as a tool. So Susan Jeffer, is the author of this book, suggests that we start looking at a transition from pain to power. To start looking at a transition from pain to power. And you don't have to take one, by the way. If you want to take one, you're welcome. If you don't want to take one, that's fine, right? And she's suggesting that the way we interact with our thoughts, the way we interact with the stimuli that are around us, okay, either produces pain in us or produces power. There's some Bible verses on there for you. If that's something that will help you, then that's great. She suggests that you start every day by looking, put this somewhere where you're going to see it right when you wake up. And ask yourself, is today a pain day or is today a power day? Is today a pain day or is today a power day? Is today an anxiety day or is today an excitement day? Is today a day that I'm gonna take command of, or is today a day I'm gonna be taken command of, right? At the end of the day, you look at it and you ask yourself, how did the day go? Was today a pain day? Was today a power day? Right? And we kind of hold ourselves in check. So how does pain become power? It's very simply how we choose to think about these stimuli. This is true for spiritual life in a completely different domain as well, by the way, right? Like when I'm tired and it's 11:30 at night, it's midnight, and I'm going home and I haven't eaten dinner, and I'm frustrated about this and I'm disappointed about that, what do? Right? I just discovered a name for my behavior. It's called Midnight McDonald's, right? Right? That's what I do, right? So there's something inside of me that there's unrest, right? And I interpret that as I should eat, right? But all I need to do is train myself to interpret that as I should deal with it. Because I eat, I get heartburn, I feel sick, I go home, I sleep, I wake up in the middle of the night because I have heartburn, I wake up the next morning tired and grumpy about the thing that I never resolved, right? So maybe there's a stimuli, there's this thing, and I just need to learn a different way of dealing with it, right? I just need to learn a different way of dealing with it, right? So sometimes, right, sometimes we get asked to do things that we, are just, they're just like, we just don't have the time for it, we just don't have the means for them, right? But the reason that we don't have the time for them, the reason that we don't have the means for them, is because we made other decisions that were more important to us. So either somebody can say, hey John, do you want to go out for dinner? I say, oh man, I can't. Or I can say, I'd love to, however, there's a few other things that are really important to me that I want to get done tonight. Now, we have to be sensitive in how we respond to people and so on. I'm not sort of saying like, you should tell people, I'd love to, but I've got things much more important than you, right? No, I'm saying, right, that we should, be sensitive in the way we say things, right? But if I say I can't, then automatically, my subconscious registers that as impotent, as unable, as not powerful, as conflicted, as stressed, like demand more than what I've got, right? As I can't afford, right? To you it sounds like nuance, it sounds to you like semantics, it sounds like we're just playing with words. I can't, I won't, big deal, right? Because you're dealing with that on a conscious level, but your subconscious only registers one thing, right? So it only registers, can't do it, right? It doesn't register, can't do it because I've made other decisions that are very important to me, and my life is actually really good. It's actually too good that I don't have enough time to do all the things I'd like to do. Wow, lucky me, I have such a full life. It registers, I can't. And then that becomes one little pebble in the pain scale, as opposed to the power scale. I should versus I could. I learned, living in Quebec, to never use the word should. They call it in French that it's moralisateur. It makes you feel like you're burdened, crushed by morality. Right? So, I could. I really should do this. I can do this. I could do this. I could is opportunity. I should is I have to. Right? And on the back of your pocket card, you've got the rest of them. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them. I want to tell you a little secret. I'm the biggest person who hates this semantic stuff. Just call a spade, right? But this works. Like in my public speaking experience of just changing every, oh my God, I'm so worried about this, to oh my God, I'm so excited about this, has completely changed my performance. I can't not make my heart race and my palms sweat and my knees shake. I can't change that. It's going to happen on my first speech and on my 10,000th speech. It's going to happen. But I can change how I choose to deal with it, with the words that I use to interact with it. So, I've got more good news. Every time you face a fear and you take a step and walk through it, you have, congratulations, just ventured out of the comfort zone into the zone of uncertainty. And when you get there, you realize, most of the time, not always, but most of the time you realize, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And all of a sudden, the comfort zone just got one footstep wider. My comfort zone just expanded. So the second thing, I'm going to suggest to you, outside of hanging this poster and looking at it and asking yourself how your day is and reviewing your day, is at the end of every day, before you go to bed, look at this poster and tell yourself, tomorrow I'm going to take a risk. Tomorrow I'm just going to put my toe in the water and see if it's too cold or too hot. I'm just going to test it out. I'm just going to take one step out of the comfort zone. Now, I'm not telling you to take, risks that are, not good, right? I'm not telling you to drive down Bathurst Street at 200 kilometers an hour and see what's going to happen. I'm not telling you to try to drive your car off a bridge or try to whatever. I'm telling you the little risks. Try to say hi to somebody you never said hi to before. Try to talk to somebody you think is really kind or really attractive or really interesting or really whatever. Just to see how it goes. Try to say something in a meeting that, you never speak at meetings because, this and that, whatever. You always send a follow-up email later, I just thought of this after the meeting, but you thought of it during the meeting because you didn't want to. Try and put up your hand during the meeting and say something. Take a step. But we'll never do those risks unless we plan them a little bit before. Yeah, I'm already planning for tomorrow. Right? Finally, who's going to help you? Who's gonna help you to plan those risks? Who is the person who is the most invested in you conquering those fears and buddying up with those fears and loving them and making them excitement, making them suspense, making them the spice of your life, making them the adventure in your life? Who is the person who is the most invested in that? It is God's own Spirit who walks with you. Let Him guide you. Let Him tell you, go talk to that person. Say hello to that person you never said hello to. That guy's standing by himself. Why don't you go say hi to him? That person, this and that. You saw that? You saw that in that meeting? You see that's not a good idea? Say something. Right? Let us learn to depend on God to help us to move our lives forward, not just in physical and practical ways, but even on the level of the soul and the spirit. Glory be to God forever.